It always comes to this. Hello there guys, back again to do another tattoo progress update. Where I last left off, I had talked about the Kelowna trip and my eyelid tattoos. I talked about them for a long time, the pain, the procedure, all of that, some of the perception. I also showed off how my color eye tattoo healed up and how my prior session with Rick healed up. So with that said, I'm just going to jump right into what we got done this time. So we did more down here, traveled down a bit, traveled up a bit. There was some stuff you refined up here. We added some kind of yellow highlights into the green highlights to brighten up the green highlights. We redid this part here. So Rick was really enjoying how the yellow he's using was going in, so he wanted to put it in there. Originally this was done with oranges and purples, believe it or not, even though it looked like it was done with like an off-white and purple. Just as time goes on, more or less ruling out the pigments that work a little worse, refining the whole thing, right? Then just kind of using the ones that work best in everywhere we go with this. The yellows are really a force of nature. Like if you wanted to do a different color sleeve than red over black, and I could give you a recommendation, do a yellow over black sleeve. I mean, it's not what I want for aesthetics, but yellow seems to cover very well. Green does as well, but the problem with the green is it saturates really well. It covers the black really well, but because it's more similar to the blue sort of tone that black typically offers you when it's healed, black tends to be a gray blue in coloration after some time. Green, even though it is very clearly green and saturated over black, it just doesn't show up as well without something else to push it forward. So for example, we do have green in this chest piece, quite a bit of green, but the thing that strikes me anyway right away when I look at this, being objective, is the yellow, not the green, and certainly not the blue or the red even. The red pieces of it might stand out more were it not for the fact that I have so much red as it is. But overall, those yellows and oranges seem to really do well, and they hold up well too, which is interesting. I'm not exactly sure why that is. I know that they contrast on the color wheel quite a bit. Black inks having a lot of blue and green pigmentation in them. It does stand to reason that yellow should show up if put in blue, I guess. But with that said, my use of yellow is limited mostly to highlights, so it's not like it's going to be one day a full yellow over black sleeve or something. Interestingly enough, I mentioned how this chest piece, and this is just for my own curiosity, I mentioned how this chest piece got a lot of hate in social media land. When I went to Kelowna, for example, most people that seen it were like, well, that looks way better in person. It got done dirty by the photos. And I was like, I don't really understand that, but thanks. Maybe they just were not so comfortable with telling me it looked like a piece of shit in person. But no, this thing got a lot of love in person, and it seems to be my most maligned work over black so far for whatever reason. I like this chest piece a lot, but it was pure experimentation, and you know, there always is, like, there's always a potential that I'll restart or change things, but I think that if I were to ever do that, it would be at the end of the bodysuit that I'm on now. So you can look forward to seeing this chest piece for a very long time, if not forever. I don't say it's a certainty just because I'm never really at the place. I'm not at the place yet where I want to be done with any one area. There hasn't been a feeling that I've had in years that's been like I could never do this again. There hasn't been one. So the idea of not working on my chest piece ever again is a sad one. So it's not something that I'm dreading getting back to. It's something that I'm looking forward to augmenting again in some meaningful way. Much like I did with the eye here, it's nice to make changes. It doesn't feel like labor. It doesn't feel like wasted money or wasted time or wasted effort. It's nice to be able, and novel really, to be able to make these kinds of customizations still so far along the ride. Now, with that said, I've got more work to do overall on my torso coming up fairly shortly. So I'm going to be doing, I'm still not certain which color in between all the red highlights I did on my torso. Most likely it'll either be dark blue or light blue, but I'm still not ruling out doing the black again. I think having the color there, the black clashing off the color, may appear darker this time. Everything that I've been doing with color on black would lead me to that belief. Like, it seems like the black pops more when you have everything else next to it. Like, that's black on black in there, and you wouldn't have that shading formation in there, for example, if we didn't do everything else with it. So when you do have the rest of the area saturated, it does pull out the black more, same as in my, like, you can see it right here on my neck, or even the stuff that we've done, like this halo that I put around the chest piece here. And I said this would not fade away, and it's there. It seems like when you have to put the black in at first to get things started, just so that you can see what you're doing. But then if you come back and you do the black again at the end of things, when the color is in there, it seems to really propel everything else. So there is still a distinct chance that instead of doing any color at all in here, I do black instead. And even with things like this, where we did these, I think this has been nearly 3 months now that we did the spider eyes again. And the black in them is staying very, very dark compared to everything else now. And it's not real fresh anymore either. That should start to numb out at some point, or, it should start to brighten up a bit at some point. That's what I keep waiting for. I keep waiting for the black there to dull out a bit, but I think that enough work has been done with contrast that the black should stay fairly dark. It seems to me that the more shit you throw at the wall, the better everything sticks. And I just think that too many people have been afraid to experiment with that. Something that I get lobbed at me more and more frequently everywhere I go, and every time I post anything on any of my social media platforms. And I mean, I understand why this is the case, because I probably am the authority on this. I have the comment asked of me all the time, is there an upper limit to how much skin can be saturated? Near as I can figure, the answer is fuck no. And no one has ever found it. As long as you're not getting really heavily scarred up every session, it seems like you can just go forever. There's parts of me that have been tattooed 30 plus times. That's not a made up number. I'm not embellishing that. There are legitimately areas of my skin that have been passed more than 30 times. Let me show you something right here. This piece of skin, that black in that nose, Rick did again. I think that's the 4th time he's blacked that out. I don't even know if he's aware of that. But that area of my skin, that one area, has probably been tattooed 30, 35 times. Like, it's passed every time we're there. It was passed every time we were there with the black. It was passed every time we were there with my old tattoo. Like, it's, you know what? We could cover that when it chills out still. We could put yellow over that, for example, like I said. I'm not saying you necessarily need to ever find out, or there's any incentive to think this way, but it seems to me that the only limit is your patience. Like, that has been the startling realization. And I have heard some really bogus things, screamed by some tattooers who are fairly well known, people saying things like you can't tattoo one area of the skin more than 3 times. I've heard that by more than one fairly well-known tattoo artists that think this way, and I just think that that's just laziness or something. I don't know what that is. It's not factual. It's not common sense. It doesn't come from any school of thought that I can find. We're just talking out our ass, and because you have a pedigree or a portfolio to stand behind you, people trust your words. Well, they should stop doing that. And I know it's hard to sit and listen to a collector or an influencer, whatever you want to call me, instead of your tattoo artist that you've been going to for 10 years. It's been lying to you every day. But that is what you need to do. You need to stop listening to people who aren't testing these things and start listening to the people who are out there actually in the trenches. Myself and my artists have learned more about this work than these famous artists that refused it will ever learn. Maybe they don't need to learn it. They're probably swimming in money anyway. Most tattoo artists are doing just fine. But then don't act like you have the answers to questions you haven't even asked, because we're asking those questions every day. You can go back and you can watch Remy Reacts to White on Black tattoos from, I think it was 2020. And I was skeptical. I did not ever once say it would not work. I was just more skeptical. Like, I wonder how that works. And obviously there were better and worse examples, and ones that I thought would do better than others. But the proper approach is curiosity and kind of, I wonder how they did that. Not, they can't do that. It doesn't work. That's not the proper approach to fucking anything. That's the approach that keeps cavemen scared of fire. You know, that's the approach that a lot of tattooers have taken in the last few years. I feel like tattooing, as much as it is experimenting and kind of in a weird era where, you know, we're doing all kinds of different shit and it's cool. There's a lot of guys out there that have streamlined everything they're doing so that it makes a cool looking Instagram picture. They don't want to do anything that's interesting. They don't want to do anything that's cool or like different or against the grain. They just want to do the projects that the masses love, that soccer moms love, that the bros love, and the work camp guys will pay, you know, $2,000 for in a session or whatever the fuck, you know. And I think there's a market for that, don't get me wrong, but it's pretty fucking checked out way of tattooing, if you ask me. Especially when you consider what tattooing was always about, was, you know, rebellion and creativity and artistry. To be going down the lane of least resistance every fucking time is pretty pathetic to watch. What I would recommend a healthy diet is maybe do 3 or 4 cookie cutter projects a week and leave open 1 day a week for something interesting that challenges you to grow and learn. Or else you're going to be bored as fuck and just collecting the checks. And if you wanted to do that, there were other things you could have done with your life just to make the money. Tattooing does make a lot of money, but I feel like if you've got no passion, you shouldn't be doing it. Personally, you should be interested in the creative side of things. And if you're not, I mean, there's going to be a market for you, but you don't have my dollars, that's for sure. And maybe you don't need my dollars, but I don't know, the real collectors can tell that shit apart. With that said, I'm not begrudging anyone wanting to line their pockets. It is what it is. We do these things for different reasons, but I think creativity should win out in an artistic pursuit every time. So obviously my eyes are still a little bruised. This is the next day from the last video I made, but the tattoos are fully peeled and they're solid black. I had no doubt that they would be, being that the guy who did them, Lee, he'd done most of my black work on my torso, and he never had trouble saturating black. His work is very high contrast to begin with. He uses a lot of hard black, so it was always a case of, if you get them done, they will be good. It was never a case of, you know, what you're going to need to do touch-up so the black might fall out or something like that. It was just so interesting to me to have an area of my body take a little longer to heal. and that the tattoo surface is healed. It was healed in no time. It was healed in about 2.5 days. So it was in the median for my tattoo healing. That's generally my average, between 2 and 3 days. But the bruising around the area, especially on the right eye, is fairly extensive. But whatever the case, it was an enjoyable experience and one that I don't take for granted. You know what? Even if at the end of things they had fallen out, I still would have done it. Like, even if I had nothing, just because it was a cool experience. When I look at these things on my face right now, it's like they're more like a brand or like a stain from a memory than they are like an aesthetic that was chosen off a wall. It's almost like a consequence of a time you had a lot of fun. That's what a lot of my stuff is these days. It's changed again. You know, the way I view it all. It's always I wouldn't say it's in flux because it's not shaken back and forth, but it's always in progression. Like the way I view the tattoo work that I'm doing it's always changing. And because I know that there's almost nothing you can't change, it's more like the change itself is not even that important. It's just the doing of the thing itself, the love of the work in it, keeps you doing it. And you can call that an addiction, but I think that's just an honest telling of the events. You know, it's like if you like watching hockey, what are you really actually getting out of it? You're getting enjoyment out of it. You're not getting anything else. Especially if you like going to live games and shit, you're just forking out fucking money on, you don't get to keep anything. You get to keep more than that with what I'm doing, even though most of this is going to be different next year. You at least get something for a time. There are things we do that are completely ethereal that no one questions for some reason. You know, how about smoking cigarettes? Most people understand why that happens. You know, most people understand why people play video games. You know, there are those old folks that don't get it, and that's fair. But, like, I don't know how this isn't more similar. I guess it's because most people just can't bear the pain of things. And I think that's a silly thing because pain is literally just the easiest part of this. You're in pain for no time at all in the grand scheme of things. And then you have all of this shit, you know. And you can do your own version of this. But, you know, I got all this for keeps as long as I want it until I don't anymore, and then I can do something else. So my money and time is at least getting me something that's tangible, whereas what a lot of people are spending their money on and not questioning is completely ethereal, completely intangible, and everybody's cool with it. This is life, you know. We trade pieces of paper until we die. You may as well enjoy what you get out of it, I guess. And I'm enjoying mine. Anyway, I'll talk to you guys again soon. Have a great day.